Go on then, let's do it. Let's discuss the connection between aliens, the greys, the traditional aliens that we think of in pop culture and cultures around the world throughout historical antiquity, and especially today with the rise of the current interest in ufology and DMT entities or psychedelic entities in general. Let me begin this video with a preface. I don't actually know what's going on. I say this many times, but I don't really know. So this is all just speculation. This is just something that I've been pondering on throughout my whole life, being very interested in ufology, DMT entities, and just beings beyond the third dimension that we comparatively simple ape-like creatures occupy, like this experience right now. Even though it's not very mundane, there is actually a lot of divinity to be found in everyday experience. Just sometimes our relationship with it is very neutered by the human struggles. But let's get into it. What is the connection? So I don't really know what the connection is, I'll just say that. But there definitely is a lot of parallels between what people consider the Greys, the Pleiadians, and the other types of alien species that people seem to encounter, are abducted by, experience in dreams. And then the actual sort of like non-corporeal metaphysical entities that people encounter in especially DMT experiences. Looks like there's some weird salvia level stuff going on over there. Probably best not to check that out. Anyway, so on a level, Mr. Vivec does not know what's going on because he has actually never experienced a DMT entity before, although I have had a entity encounter on 4-ACO DMT. So that was with a purple woman. She wasn't exactly like an alien at all. She was like an energy being that comforted me during my out-of-body experience, where I became some form of galaxy brain consciousness and comforted me, and had this shed a sexual but also motherly energy to her that made me believe that everything in reality is going to be okay and that my whole life had led up to this moment. But actual DMT entities are often described through artistic representation as looking quite similar to the Greys that we see in pop culture, are depicted in books like Communion, a great book that I'm reading at the minute. But visitors from another world have been described in many different ways, not just as the Greys that we depict them as in our current sort of period of humanity that we occupy ourselves in. It seems that what's interesting about aliens, or the visitors, is that they take on different forms throughout historical antiquity. This is a point made by Jacques Vallée in his book Passport to Magonia, From Folklore to Flying Saucers, where he depicts that the others, the aliens, actually appear, the others, yeah, like it's good to call them the others, or the phenomenon depicts itself in different ways throughout different periods of history. So sometimes they're, like in our society currently, in our culture, they're seen as people from another planet because we're very much materialistic based, science based. Back in the day they used to appear as people from other countries, in so to people in one part of the world they would appear as, like, I don't know, Spanish people on flying boats. We had no idea about boats at that point, but flying boats especially, obviously then that would then lead on to aeroplanes, and we start making aeroplanes, the visitors appear as something else. So the phenomenon has a direct correlation to the current state of human consciousness and human affairs. But what is the connection between the DMT entities and the aliens that we see nowadays? Because they very much do look similar. All I will say is, the only thing I do know is that these beings, whether the Greys and the aliens are physical or not, I'm starting to think they're metaphysical and can take on any appearance that they want. But when they come into the third dimension, again, must say, I don't actually know what's going on, but this is just my idea. I've never actually experienced an alien at all, but they appear to be, both of them appear to be conscious, highly conscious beings that can interface with reality in a far more intricate way than us comparatively simple primate type beings. There's a helicopter in the sky, probably not a UFO, but who knows, maybe this is the day I finally get abducted, thank God. Don't know what they do with me. There's not much interesting going on inside my mind or body for them to take out. If you notice in many of these alien abduction cases, they seem to take out a lot of like fluid, and it seems they have an interest in humanity. There's a lot of theories about what's going on, like as if the Greys or something, it's as if they're from like a future timeline where us as humanity, it's actually us from the future, where they've completely lost their ability to, like, they've lost their organic soul, and they're so interested by our past selves that they actually extract like seminal fluid and other stuff to scan and bring back to like their timeline in order to maybe fix what's going on. Who knows? Who actually knows? But one major similarity between the DMT entities and the actual aliens is the fact that they do appear to be highly conscious beings, and the way they interface with reality is much more. It's much more in-depth and thorough and intricate, and I think there's a DMT entity over there trying to grab my attention. It's not quite working, mate. But yeah, so it's just interesting that when people encounter them, I mean, many people encounter psychedelic entities in various forms, sometimes as like literal animals, like spirit animals, but a prevalent one that people seem to experience is the sort of the greys, the grey alien type, the humanoid sort of looking like ethereal, non-corporeal beings. So what's going on there? So unfortunately, for many of you who are AI detractors, I'm going to actually read a passage from ChatGPT, although I think I've just destroyed it. No, I haven't. Here we go. So I asked ChatGPT, what's the connection between aliens and DMT entities? The connection between aliens and DMT entities is largely rooted in the subjective experience of individuals who use DMT, a powerful psychedelic compound. Many users report encounters with intelligent, often non-human beings, sometimes described as aliens, machine elves, or interdimensional entities. During their experiences, that's what they encounter. You can tell this is not a curated Vivec video. Here's a breakdown of the main connections. Common themes in DMT experiences. Entity encounters. Users often report contact with beings that seem autonomous, intelligent, and communicative. Alien-like descriptions. These entities are sometimes described as insectoid, robotic, otherworldly, or alien in appearance, leading to the comparison with extraterrestrials. Hyperdimensional spaces. The places visited under DMT are often described as high-tech, mechanical, or otherworldly realms, again evoking sci-fi or alien-like imagery. Just a disclaimer, it must be said that ChatGPT is not biblical. It's not the gospel. It doesn't know everything about what's going on with reality. Number 2, Terence McKenna's influence. Terence McKenna is a key figure in psychedelic culture, famously referred to the beings he encountered on DMT as machine elves, or self-transforming elf-like creatures. He speculated they could be beings from another dimension, a reflection of the collective unconscious. extraterrestrial intelligences using DMT as a communication channel. Rather interesting, because if we look at many of the look at the beautiful view, by the way. If we look at many of the alien encounters, which I have studied many of them, the Greys or the alien beings don't actually move like normal people. They don't interface with 3D reality as if there was like literally me going to like touch that. They sort of like, and like the way they move, they sort of like shift like this, not using feet on the ground. They sort of like, yeah, they shift around as if there was literally like energy beings, not normal like how we are, although they seem to have physical attributes. So maybe the connection is that possibly they actually are, these DMT entities can project themselves into 3D reality as the Greys or as the phenomenon, and that when we actually take DMT and other psychedelics, we raise our consciousness to a level that we're able to experience them in their purest form. I highly recommend that you go and watch the last video that this is actually an addendum to, which was alien beings showed this man the truth of existence after he smoked DMT and salvia. It's the longest trip report I've ever read in my entire life, and whilst very technical for a big portion of it, towards the end it gets super philosophical and metaphysical regarding the nature of consciousness and what the connection between us and the entities actually are. And his big takeaway from it, not to spoil it all, but I think you should listen to it in full, but one thing I do agree with is that the entities are us. Not like us, like, I mean, maybe they could be us from the future, maybe that's where it is. Maybe in the future we interface so deeply with technology and reality that we literally, maybe life starts here on Earth. Maybe this is where it all begins, and that I'm just experiencing one point of like the timeline of the universe, and that eventually life does start here on Earth, and that eventually we end up going to seed the whole universe, and in the recursive nature of the universe we actually end up going back and visiting ourselves, because we can have the ability to time travel, but we're so highly conscious that we don't abuse it. Maybe that's what's going on, and maybe it is possible that we are all alone right now, but in the future we won't be. But in a sense we're not alone, because in the future humans will be so evolved and different looking that we'll go back and actually observe ourselves as if there was an alien up there observing me, maybe even me in the future incarnation. This is just so speculative right now that I couldn't even begin to tell you how speculative this is. This is just me having a lot of fun. I'm more interested in what you guys think, to be honest, especially those of you that have experienced entities and maybe actually had alien encounters yourself. That would be a much better source of credibility, to be honest. People who can actually put the dots together, having experienced it rather than theorized it like myself. So more stuff. What else is there? Neurological and psychological theories. Pattern recognition overdrive. The brain may try to make sense of chaotic or novel sensory input by interpreting it as familiar patterns like faces, beings, or entities. This is where I disagree with all the material explanation. You know me, I'm not a materialist, I'm clearly an idealist. Archetypes. Carl Jung's idea of universal archetypes might explain why people across cultures report similar beings, aliens, being a modern archetype of the others. Something that I probably do entertain as well is that we do have this collective consciousness type of experience going on with, like, yeah, archetypes, where we do subconsciously or unconsciously keep propagating these ideas, and they spread about. And this is why people experience similar stuff, because on a level we are all immersed in the same sort of like global culture, even if we are segmented into our own like nations. Number 4, alien abduction and DMT similarities. Some researchers, e.g. Dr. Rick Strassman in DMT the Spirit Molecule, noted strong parallels between DMT trips, alien abduction reports, e.g. missing time, medical procedures, communication with non-human entities. This led to speculation that abduction experiences could be internally generated DMT experiences or share a neurochemical basis. I think it's, as much as I am like not anti-material, but as much as I'm an idealist in a sense, I believe that mind precedes matter. I do think it's important for us to study the material as well, because there always is an element to it, and actually I am very interested in the nuts and bolts physical element of UFOs and the aliens themselves that appear like the Greys. 5. Esoteric and fringe views. In more speculative circles, some believe DMT opens portals to literal alternate dimensions populated by real entities, possibly aliens. Others think aliens may use DMT-like states to communicate with humans non-physically. In summary, the connection between aliens and DMT entities is not scientific, but rather phenomenological and symbolic. Whether these experiences represent actual alien contact, inner psychological content, or something else entirely is still unknown. The overlap likely says more about human consciousness and cultural imagery than it does about extraterrestrials per se. Would you like a scientific, spiritual, or experiential take on this more in depth? Obviously, I said, can you please give me the spiritual lowdown, Mr. AI Overlord? From a spiritual perspective, the connection between aliens and DMT entities is often viewed not as metaphorical or neurological, but as real encounters with beings from other realms of existence, beings that might be interpreted as spirits, guides, or cosmic intelligences. Here's how various spiritual frameworks interpret these experiences. DMT as a gateway to the spirit world. In shamanic traditions, especially in the Amazon, where DMT-containing plants are used in ayahuasca, the spirit world is populated by intelligent non-human beings. These may appear as animal spirits, deities, teachers, or healers. Some modern DMT users, influenced by these traditions, interpret the alien beings as spirit guides or interdimensional intelligences who teach lessons, perform energetic healing, offer insight into the nature of reality, self, or the universe, as Brian Cox would say. Number 2, interdimensional beings, not aliens in the sci-fi sense. Many spiritually inclined users believe that these beings aren't aliens from another planet, but rather inhabitants of higher dimensions of consciousness. I like this one. DMT doesn't cause hallucinations, but instead tunes the mind to a frequency where these entities naturally exist, like turning a radio dial to a different station. And this, what's really interesting, is because in that report that I'm referring to, that this is an addendum the alien beings actually recognise them, and the aliens recognise him as being extensions of each other, and that the aliens, the entities, were interested in him because they saw that he inhabited a lower plane of consciousness, like the reptilian brain type of consciousness that they don't have, and that they're interested in him because they're like lower and higher versions. So him raising his consciousness with DMT brought them into like their sort of like plane of existence, and allowed them to meet each other, even though they actually are the same thing, because everything is consciousness. Everything literally is. This is all just consciousness. This is a reflection of myself. It's all imaginary. This is my opinion. It might not be true, but that's what I get from my experiences, and I think many of you probably agree as well. And if you don't agree, then that's completely fine, because we all have our own perspectives, and that's the beauty of life, is that it's infinite perspective. Like turning a radio dial to a different station, that's what it was saying. This aligns with mystical philosophies like theosophy, Gnostic cosmology, Vedantic concepts of non-physical planes, lokas, shout out Loka Vision, Communication with higher intelligences. Some DMT experiences report receiving telepathic messages, visions of universal truths, or feelings of being deeply known and loved by these beings. Spiritually, this is interpreted as contact with higher aspects of reality, sometimes thought of as angels, bodhisattvas, or light beings. A reminder that consciousness is not limited to the human mind and that intelligence exists in realms beyond the material. DMT and the soul. There are beliefs that DMT facilitates a temporary separation of the soul from the body. The entities are beings the soul meets between lives or during astral travel. God, I hope I come back as an alien next time. I'm a bit sick of samsara, to be honest, of the 3D realm. I really would like to be some form of like metaphysical energy being. Please, for the love of God. The alien quality of these beings reflects the soul's unfamiliarity with these non-physical states, not literal extraterrestrial origin. Number 5. Why they look alien. Spiritually, their alien appearance can be seen as a test or challenge for the ego to surrender, a reflection of how far removed the spiritual world is from everyday physical reality, a symbolic representation of aspects of ourselves or the cosmos we don't yet understand. Final thoughts from a spiritual perspective. From a spiritual lens, DMT doesn't create illusions, but rather removes veils, allowing a brief glimpse into deeper realities where other beings live and operate. These beings may look like aliens, but to many who've had such encounters, they are guides, watchers, or caretakers of consciousness, not beings from space, but from beyond the veil. Fascinating stuff. Whether you like AI or not, I thought that was a really good breakdown. And obviously it doesn't know everything because it's just being inputted by a human, isn't it? Like, it doesn't know everything about what's going on. That's the Queen's Garden. I've never actually been down here before. So I've never actually experienced either of these things, so I can't actually make a direct comparison. So hopefully one day when I do actually experience it, let's say if it ever happens, if I'm ever chosen by the Greys or if I meet DMT entities. I actually tried attempting to break through and meet like DMT entities at one point. That was the one time my DMT pen decided to literally just stop working out of nowhere. In this moment when I was playing Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it was a very silly moment. It was like an egoic desire to go and see the others, and in that moment I handled it with care. My mate told me to handle it with care, and then it just literally shit itself, man, and stopped working. So what can you do when the visitors don't want to see you? No, really, they're the best there is. So yeah, rather fascinating. I'm sorry if you was expecting more of my own opinions, but I thought it was rather interesting to read ChatGPT's summary of the events, because a lot of I don't really have the background or like the clout to talk about the connection between them. I just thought it'd be an interesting video to make here as a follow-up to the last video. So I highly implore you to go and watch that video, because I think that guy who wrote that report really had quite a good head on him, even though the beginning of it was very technical and it probably like bored a lot of people who just like to get into the meat and potatoes trip reports and get to the funky stuff. But I think it was really worth a listen because it was so thorough, such a good breakdown towards the end. The guy had clearly had thousands of trips, and the main takeaway from it that I really agreed with was that regardless of any entities or any separate thing you might meet in reality, like if I meet another person, they are a reflection of you, because we are all one, we're all consciousness, and the radical implications of that facet of existence go way beyond anything I can actually fathom right now. Pretty blue flowers, they're also me. Anyway, guys, love you. What's your opinions on the connection between DMT entities and aliens, specifically the DMT entities who look like the Greys and stuff? Maybe back in the day when people had psychedelic experiences, and then the sort of average 3D phenomenological sort of like alien visitor experiences was more similar to the psychedelic ones. I really don't know. It's such a deep topic. Also, what the hell is that? Is that like a bootleg TARDIS? I don't fucking know. Imagine if you looked in there and there was a little 3-foot man ready to take me. The funny thing is about being abducted, as much as like I say I'd like for it to happen, I would literally like cack my pants. I'd be filled with fear. But regardless, hope you enjoyed this little breakdown. I might make another one in the future where I have more of a detailed opinion myself. I'm still speculating on this stuff all the time. I'm reading all the books. I really like the theory at the minute that Jesse Michaels sort of latches onto at the minute, where they actually are time travelers, like they're just us from the future and they're just observing us, and that there's a point thousands of years in the future of humanity where we actually go and seed the universe and sort of create life across the universe, but then we make it recursive because we can go back and like ensure that it happens, because once we get time travel we'll be like conscious enough to use it. I don't know, it's very, very, very muddied. It's a very muddy sort of explanation, but I like it. I'm sort of starting to entertain that life all begins here on Earth. It was literally the perfect point in the universe. It's almost the center of the universe in a relative sense, because it then goes and expands outwards. Not spatially the center, but like literally the center of the point where we go and literally go and populate everything from beyond there, when we have the capability to do so, and we've worked through all our collective karma and we have become a globalist. The fucking globalist, putting fucking fluoride in the water, making the frogs gay. Once we've got through all this and we become literally Earthicans, like Futurama, like the Earthicans are coming, Agnew. When we finally get through our karma and connect as a species, maybe that's when we can go and do really beautiful, deep things and become what we're meant to be, which is higher conscious beings, and then we become the others out there. Anyway guys, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe for more fascinating psychedelic related content. And definitely let me know what you guys think in the comments, because I'm really more interested in what you guys think, especially those who have had deeper experiences than me. Anyway, peace out, love you, thank you for all the support. Don't forget to support us on Patreon, like and subscribe, all the YouTuber spiel that I forget every single time. Direct donations in the description. Join the Discord, and for now I'll love you and leave you, and peace amongst all beings.